All right. Welcome to the monthly movie dispatch, the movie review show from friends you can trust. Every week, we broadcast a review of a new film, talk about some film news, and recommend what to watch. We've been talking, critiquing, and gushing over movies since we were young, and we aim to bring you honest conversation on relevant cinema. I'm Brandon Bolby, the host of this week's episode, and with me, I have
Derek Deal. I'm the passenger.
from the passenger from Everett, Washington. I'm here in New York City. Today, we will be reviewing Godzilla vs. Kong, which just dropped this last week. Um, been oddly anticipating this film because it's one of the kind of the first like comeback blockbusters emerging out of quarantine. And that was
Mm-hmm.
proven 100% in its crazy box office and theaters that no one was expecting this weekend. I
Yeah.
don't know if you saw the numbers, Derek.
Yeah. This is like the
Uh,
first time I've been to Box Office Mojo in like over a year. It was actually really exciting.
yeah, I think they hit a 48.5 million, which I mean, I thought it would might meander around like 15 or 20 at best, but
Mm-hmm.
like granted, it's not the levels it probably could have been, but that's like a legit opening
Yeah.
for most films.
Yeah.
I think the budget of this movie was about 180 million. Um, so we'll see. It also dropped at the same time, day and date on HBO Plus, and you can also see it there pretty
Max.
easily.
Yeah.
Oh, Max. Oh, so
Same
many
thing.
like so many suffixes for
Yeah.
all these like streaming services. It's hard to keep track of.
Yeah.
So what to talk about? Real quick, Derek, do you have our stream open right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So.
Looking good.
Yep.
All right.
Um.
Keep an eye on that for me. But let's dive into this monster verse that kind of seemed to come out of nowhere that they're building for themselves. That this film, Godzilla vs. Kong, is attached to. I
Mm-hmm.
think so far they've hit their fourth film. So the chronological order is Godzilla, kind of the small movie that came out, I don't know, 6 years ago at this point.
Yeah. Something like that.
Uh, and then its follow up, Kong Skull Island, and then the more recent Godzilla, King of Monsters, and now finally the big meetup, Godzilla vs Kong. This like series I wasn't expecting. I don't know if anyone asked for it, um, and I'm surprised they're already somehow on the fourth film. Like no joke, Derek. When I went to
Yeah.
see this movie, I wasn't even thinking about the past three films. And granted, I never saw Godzilla King of Monsters, which this film is probably most related to.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as I saw the cast of characters, like Kyle Chandler and the girl from uh, Netflix show,
Millie Bobby Brown.
yeah, Millie Bobby Brown
Yeah.
from Stranger Things, I was like, oh shit, yes, this is like an ongoing series of
Mm-hmm.
films that this is attached to. So have you seen all four now, Derek?
Yes. I actually just watched King of Monsters like a couple weeks ago in preparation for this movie.
Should have done it, but
Um,
honestly, it didn't even cross my mind
yeah,
like whatsoever.
yeah,
Um, and Godzilla King of Monsters, when you mentioned earlier, like I was so excited for that movie because the trailer was like gorgeous.
yeah.
And then it came out to just like middling reviews, and I kind of
Hmm.
just pushed it aside.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just saw it. What'd you think?
I liked it. I actually had it built up as like one of the worst Godzilla movies ever made. Uh,
Mhm.
People at work that are like huge Godzilla fans, and it probably from that perspective, as like a long time like Toho fan of Godzilla, then I could understand why these movies probably aren't quite doing it for people because they're not like smart movies, they're just kind of like big dumb like beautiful like crazy imagery and action scenes and stuff, but there's just not a lot of like meat to them, and I
Yeah,
think
like
that's what
we were
people
saying, it
like about
to
the
me,
older
it kind
ones.
of always reminded me of the second Jurassic World movie,
Yeah.
and just like really visionary director with just maybe no sustenance under it.
Yeah, and they've actually gotten some pretty good directors. um, that first one was directed by Gareth Evans, I think, who ended up doing like
Yeah.
Rogue One.
And
And
I thought, like, I mean, the first one,
yeah,
I thought that is like average.
yeah,
Like to me, that's kind of like as average as it gets for
hmm,
these movies. Like there's stuff to enjoy, there's some things to hate, but overall, like it's fine, and you walk away with a few good scenes.
yeah.
So that's where I was always at with that film.
Did you see Kong Skull Island?
I saw Kong Skull Island, and that movie is fucking
Yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah. That one's
That's
really good.
like that's how you do like dumb blockbuster
Hmm.
to the absolute like best extent.
Yeah,
Um, like Fast and the Furious, like the best of Fast and the Furious type style. You
right.
know what you're doing, and you do it so like creatively and tongue in cheek, but just like still being artful somehow, and like having all these awesome scenes with payoffs and like funny moments. And
And not the
yeah,
same like action. You know, it's easy with these big monsters. It's like let's just be monsters punching each other. But that movie was really good at like finding ways to do those scenes differently each time. You know, so
it felt unique, even though
yeah,
it's another Kong movie, which seems so unoriginal. The whole plot and what like Kong and all the like monsters they find in that movie, like everything felt unique.
yeah.
There's this clip on Twitter that like was circling around of like the best death scene of just the guy like holding the grenade
Mm,
trying to kill the monster, like one of the lizard monsters. And it stops and just like smacks him with his tail, and he goes shooting off like a rocket into the cliffside and just explodes in a second.
yeah.
And the music's like it's about to be some cliche triumphant moment, and it
Right.
just pulls a perfect 180 on you. Like that's just how smart that movie is.
Yeah.
So I always loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of like now that we're like talking about King Kong, I'm like imagining like Peter Jackson King Kong and stuff. Like this is completely different. Like when I think of these movies, I just think of big animals punching each other. They're like
Yeah.
kaiju movies, you know. They're like Pacific Rim type stuff. Is what I
Yeah. This
kind of
is
think.
this especially this new one. This new one is
Yeah,
Pacific Rim.
yeah,
Um, full on.
yeah.
Um, what's what's your favorite and least favorite of all four? Just quick shot.
I think Kong Skull Island's still pretty easily my favorite, and I think the first Godzilla, honestly, is probably my least favorite.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
yeah. If I was to rank them, I think I'd go from worst to best. I'd go Godzilla, and then Kong versus Godzilla, and then King of Monsters, and then Kong Skull
Okay.
Island. Yeah,
So King of Monsters was a step up from the one we are reviewing today.
yeah. So King
Yeah,
of
I would.
Monsters, what they do really good in that movie is there's so many like monsters. There's so many big giant things for Godzilla to fight. So they can just do the punching thing every time, but it's still interesting because every monster has like a whole different perspective, like a whole different way they have to go
Yeah,
about like beating
your
it or fighting
script
it.
is just all already forgiving in that
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
It's like good setup.
yeah,
Yeah, I guess my order is agreed with you. Kong Skull Island the best. I would say Godzilla is just middle meandering, and then Godzilla vs Kong is my least favorite. And I
yeah,
didn't see King of Monsters, and maybe I'll like turn it on one evening pretty casually
yeah,
and watch through it, just see how it is.
yeah.
All right. So so with that, let's get going with all that backstory.
Mm-hmm.
So we're reviewing Godzilla vs Kong, directed by Adam Wingard. He's done a few interesting movies.
Yeah.
Death Note on Netflix, which was trash. Um, I don't know. What do you think of his VHS stuff? You probably have an opinion on that.
Yeah, VHS is pretty good. He directed one of the segments of there. Him and he has like a writer that writes a bunch of his movie. Oh, when he was doing his horror movies,
Hmm.
he had a writer and he was the director, and they collaborated on a bunch of movies. So I've actually been a fan of his for quite a while.
Hmm.
Um,
Comes from his kind of horror past, and You're Next before that.
Your Next and The Guest are both really really great horror movies.
This is definitely his first blockbuster, his first time doing a very high budget film. Who knows how much Netflix gave him for Death Note, but this is definitely the highest budget film he's worked with.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, so starring Alexander Skarsgård, Miley Bobby Brown, Rebecca Hall, just to name a few. And plot description: The epic next chapter in the cinematic monsterverse pits two of the greatest icons in motion picture history against each other: the fearsome Godzilla and the mighty Kong, with humanity caught in the balance. Now, that's a good plot description. It like has nothing to do with the plot. It's like a pitch.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's cool. Available in theaters right now. You can go see it with a mask, or HBO Plus if you want to stream it. Let's get your first thoughts, since maybe you liked it a little more than me, Derek.
Well, I
What's
want to
your
know real quick before we get too far into there. Just so
Yes.
I watched it at home on HBO Max. You
Oh,
went in theaters and watched it, right?
I went to what I think is the nicest theater in New York, the AMC at Lincoln Center,
Mm.
and went to Dolby there.
How did that
Saw it
feel?
on. We always say this, but it always shocks me. It's the loudest fucking experience of my life.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, there was like children there, and in my head, I was like, "These gotta get these kids out of here." Like, this is like this can't be good for them. This is so like too loud for anybody here, let alone little kids.
Right.
But um, yeah, it was like uncomfortable how loud it was, which maybe was good or bad. But
Yeah.
the seats are so amazing. The screen is so gorgeous, and the room you're in is just like, I don't know. It just feels so great to be in that theater all the time.
Yeah.
Um, Signed back up for Stubbs A list.
Nice.
It was free.
Yeah.
I'll keep going. I got my vaccination.
Nice. I got my
Vaccinated.
first shot.
Yeah. So it'll get easier.
Yep. Yeah, I haven't quite made the commitment to do that yet. I still haven't even made it out to the theaters. And I'm not like afraid to go. It's more of a time thing now. It's just like I'm so busy. And that's like the nice thing that's kind of coming out of this, you know, depending who you are, it's kind of become a nicer thing for me. Like I'll pay the $20 at home just because
Yeah.
I don't have time to like
Spend an extra
leave and,
hour
like,
just traveling
yeah.
back and forth and watching trailers.
Yeah,
and,
exactly. So I can just like pop it on, you know,
I did
whenever.
that thing where I was like, oh, the movie's not going to start till, I know AMC, the movie doesn't start till 24 minutes in.
Right.
So I showed up like 22 minutes in. It was
Nice.
fine.
All right.
Give me your thoughts,
Cool.
Derek.
So overall, I enjoyed the movie quite a bit. I thought it was like visually it was just like incredible. Like, you know, I don't know how much like if it really stands like above the other ones as far as like the graphics. I think we've kind of gotten to a point now where it's just like everything. If you throw enough money at it, just everything always looks amazing. And there's some shots in this that are just like incredible how much detail they are able to put in these creatures and stuff nowadays, and the expression, and it's just nuts. There's like scenes in this movie you're just like, what am I looking at? Like there's just so much visually going on, and I liked it. I thought it worked. But
It's insanity. Especially after watching like a lot of the VFX artists react on YouTube. It like gives me like a higher respect for just like the amount of rendering time
yeah.
and the amount of scale they have in these, which causes like their particle physics generator to just be even more insane when they're in Hong Kong at the end.
Right.
Like I just couldn't imagine putting those scenes together and like hitting the render button on your server farm
Right.
and hoping it all comes out good. Like
Yeah.
it is, yeah, we're just at the point where it's like 90% of this movie is the most like jaw-dropping full CGI animation. And like I got to the point where I felt like bad for how much money had to be poured. Like there would be throwaway shots where it would just like cut back to Kong like
Or
eating like a bug for no reason.
yeah.
And I was like, they just like demanded that and to the effects company, and they had to produce, even though it was like, here's an extra 4 months of like effects time in
Right.
a 10-second shot that's not even needed for this film.
Yeah. Yeah. A large portion of this movie is entirely just computer generated. Yeah. No actors, no anything. Just like large portions of it.
100%.
But yeah, so aside of that, so it's jaw-droppingly beautiful movie. I thought the plot was really kind of boring. I don't really know like if we were to pull apart the different plot lines, I'm not really sure what any of them were trying to do, except for some sort of Kong backstory that didn't really go anywhere in the end. And then Yeah, some B plot that ended up having like almost no effect on the plot, the overall story, and
That is interesting. I don't know if you want to dive. Like, didn't think of that. Where you're saying the Kong backstory that didn't go anywhere.
yeah,
I didn't really think of that, but like, you're talking about the throne
yeah.
and the axe.
I assume it's a
Yeah,
setup, like they're hoping
I hope
for down
so.
the road, but
But yeah, you're right. Like the climax of all that is just him sitting in a chair, which
yeah.
doesn't really explain anything, anyways.
I think like one thing I learned after watching King of Monsters, I was looking up all the stuff that I didn't even get. I was like, what? Why did they put that in the movie? But they're all like callbacks to all the original movies.
Hmm.
They have a bunch of just like random callbacks. I'm curious if all that Hollow Earth stuff must
I'm
be,
sure
they're pulling from the older stuff and
Hollow
trying to.
Earth was like, yeah, too specific of an idea for it not to have been based on some of these older films,
Yeah,
which I'm guessing there's many of. But
yeah,
and I maybe one of them has to do with Kong, being the ruler of the Hollow Earth Kingdom. So
hmm,
that probably helps out with that backstory
yeah.
of
But
him getting
so
back to his
if that's
throne.
the case, then maybe that'll be cool down the road. But as it stands right now, it's just kind of like a way to spend half hour of the movie, and see some cool like imagery, weird, like earth, like plant, like I don't even know, like all weird physics, mountains coming down from the ceiling and the floor,
Yeah,
and it looked cool, but
definitely looked cool.
yeah, it was just for him to get an
Like
axe,
touching
and
the rock and having it like come out of its equilibrium and fall
yeah,
upwards into the ground.
yeah.
Yeah, like cool visuals for sure.
It did add to like some of the stuff I did like that I thought did work. Um, was like we're not. I don't know if I should save anything for like spoilers.
Yeah, let's save spoilers if
Okay.
you have a couple points.
Okay. Well, I'll just finish my initial reactions then. It's
Hmm.
just yeah, the plot. I had a lot of issues with the plotting. There were some characters that I thought were brought in just to kind of for connective tissue, but weren't really important to the story. But the action was really like just epic, and it looked so cool that I just could not help but just be in awe and have a lot of fun during this all the battle scenes, And I thought they were
Hmm.
pretty creative. I don't think they're quite up there with like Skull Island, but
No.
they were. I thought they were better than like Pacific Rim, um, which I think has a lot of issues too. But they're pretty similar visually, and I think this one worked a lot better with the fight scene. So yeah,
Um, I kind of agree with you on a lot of the fronts. Actually, I mean, I don't disagree with you on any of your points, except for to me, it's just like because of those points, I fall on a much more disappointed like level of this film. I think that the visuals are outstanding and mind blowing, and so hard to even grasp how much time was spent on those shots, especially leading up to the climax. Just insane.
mm-hmm.
And when you see Kong's face and his detail and movement, like it's incredible. Um, I think every character in this movie is the worst, like plot wise, motivation wise. They're giving no agency or relevance to the story whatsoever. I think the you call it the B story, even though like it's half of the characters in the film and
Right,
half of what any of the characters do. It's like 50% of the character storyline of this film with oh, what do we
Millie Bobby Brown.
Millie Bobby Brown. Like her storyline is the worst. It goes they're just like bumbling around. They affect nothing in the plot. Everything is just happening to them and they make no decisions of their own right to affect the outcome of the next scene.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like like literally stumbling like it's some like children's cartoon. Like, whoa, like how did we get here? uh and like they fall into a spaceship that happens to take off and bring them to this next place, and then
Right.
it's so bad. um and there's one thing they end up doing in the very end. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
They spill some liquid,
Yeah.
and it's not even Miley Bobby Brown that does it. It's this new character, or maybe he's not new, but it's this like the most tertiary character that does nothing.
Yeah, they're
Ends
both
up
new.
doing
She's
it.
the only person from the other
And
one.
like that, like we spend like 40 minutes with these characters to amount to them spilling some liquid.
Yeah.
And like that's it. You like look closely, and that's the only thing they do.
Mm-hmm.
So really weird that they shoehorn these characters back into this movie to have them do nothing.
It was like a
And
Transformers thing. Like that's something Transformers do. Like the Transformer movies, where they just like making up things for characters to do just to fill up screen time.
along for the ride
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
everything else that's happening around them, but
Yeah.
for some reason we're following them.
Right.
And like honestly, I think even the flip side um, of Alexander Skarsgård and the child,
Mm.
like there's not much more there either besides like slow motion shots of the child trying to seem really like brave and epic in front of Kong. um there's not too much with them either. Like I actually envisioned like an alternate version of this movie of it just from Kong's perspective,
Yeah.
and having it be like a silent film with
Right.
this like girl that would show up every once in a while to like calm him down.
Yeah.
and and his relationship with just Kong and Godzilla that's like unspoken, but like it develops through their fights in this film. Like that's like the interesting character development I would want to see.
Yeah.
But instead they have it flipped around. We follow mostly these characters that do nothing, and our two interesting characters, Godzilla and Kong, are like, kind of sidelined into just action.
Yeah.
Uh, that's my summary of
Yeah.
how I felt. Kind of rough.
Yeah.
But yeah, balls to the wall, crazy action for sure. You can't deny that.
Yeah.
And there's some like cool like stuff like you were saying, like sometimes even better than Pacific Rim, like some really funky action moves and shots to go along with it with this scale that work really well.
Yeah.
And there's some great epic sci-fi stuff going on.
Yeah. I think all the action scenes are pretty fun across the board.
Yeah, so Nick just wrote in our chat, I loved everything about Kong and Godzilla, but everything with the humans was boring. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm on the same page with you, Nick. That was kind of what I was describing. I think the Kong Godzilla dynamic is probably pretty interesting. And yeah, the best part of the movie.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't mind the little girl, I think. Like I actually kind of understand what, like, I think she kind of worked. Like I kind of like the idea of her being, if I understood what they were saying correctly, she's like a native from Skull Island. And so she has like this relationship with Kong as he's like their protectors and stuff like that. And I think that's just a cool idea. And
Was she in the last film
No.
that I didn't see? Oh, okay.
But it was kind of like a weird, they like decided not to go too far into that. They just kind of left it at that and then brought her in when they needed her to like bring some emotional weight to whatever was happening to Kong.
Yes. Her character wasn't really explored too much about especially if she wasn't in the other films. We've got to be mistaken there. She has to be mentioned before.
I don't think she.
But
I mean,
they could have
natives
gone more in depth about what it meant to her about being from this island and now her people are gone or whatnot.
Yeah.
But they kind of bring her in on these like very repetitive same scenes. She does the same thing like 4 times in a row, where she just like touches Kong or stands there in a really like, and they just show the scale between her being little and Kong being huge and her not being afraid. And they kind of do that over and over again. And it's cool, but it would be cooler if we like really knew who she was and why she needed Kong or something.
Yeah. They should just taken out like all the Millie Bobby Brown stuff and added in more scenes of that girl, like, even do like maybe
feeling something about her life and position and being deaf and that's a great idea. And it would just like could connect her to her parental figures, if I guess they are, even though she just kind of like lives with her, but she's not her mom, but she kind of is, and
Hmm.
she, I don't know, yeah, that's a weird connect. I never really got the connection with um the lead female character, which I'm blanking on her name, and Alexander Skarsgård.
Rebecca Hall, I think.
Rebecca Hall.
I mean, yeah. I don't even know who the lead was. It was weird. It was weird.
I do
Weird
have
movie.
another gripe with like the acting, or maybe it's more the script in this film. Like, I think
Mm.
this is like kind of the modern trend of Avengers director, what's his name?
Joss Whedon.
Joss Whedon. I think this is kind of like the Joss Whedonification of summer blockbuster characterization,
Mm.
where just everyone is like doesn't really care, and everyone just kind of like
Right.
is joking about everything, and there's no grounded person in the world. No one's ever in a serious situation
They're all like
or like
super
life threatening.
self-aware about the movie and
Yeah,
stuff.
they're just like
Yeah.
throwing jabs, they're self-aware, they're quirky, and they don't really care too much about what's actually happening. And it's supposed to make the audience like feel fun and light and popcorn, summer popcorny.
Mm.
But to me, it just makes you feel like detached from everything. And especially when it's not just one character, it's like 5 or 6 characters all acting that same way.
Yeah.
There's like no differentiation between them.
Yeah.
And I really got a lot of vibes from that from this movie. It was kind of annoying me.
Yeah. And that's kind of a thing about this franchise because the first one was like so grounded. It was almost like
Yes,
too grounded.
100%.
And then Kong Skull Island was kind of closer to what you're talking about this movie does, except for it made it work. I think like maybe they balanced it a lot better because like John C. O'Reilly's in that movie and he's like really silly and kind of. But I guess if you can just build it into the characters in a way that makes sense, you can make it work. But yeah, it's like it's easy to just blank like just throw it on all the characters because it's like we all know this is a big silly blockbuster, so no one needs to take it super seriously, and we're gonna focus on the action scenes and stuff, and that's kind of what it feels like the whole time.
Hmm.
Um,
And where would you think the last film would fall into your spectrum you're creating?
Actually, the last film was like closer to the first one. I thought it doesn't really have any humor. Like it's a pretty dour movie.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's like yeah, it actually doesn't really have any comedic relief. Maybe that was something they were trying to like,
Overcompensate
yeah,
for.
yeah, in this one, and it just didn't quite click.
Yeah, one thing that was a little offensive to me uh, is the IMDb rating of Godzilla vs Kong versus Kong Skull Island.
Oh no.
Um, Godzilla vs Kong is a 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, and Kong Skull Island is 75% also
Ooh,
on Rotten Tomatoes.
yeah,
I take some gripe to that. Like, who are these critics that
yeah.
think these movies are completely equivalent in their funness and creativity?
See, I think people weren't ready for Kong Skull Island to be as good as it was, and a lot of people just didn't like view it
Yeah.
because, like, I remember when it came out and people just weren't talking about it. I was like, why is no one talking about how awesome this movie
Yeah.
is?
Or they were
But
reviewing it in like a more cynical lens,
yeah, right.
like expecting it to be bad and not really even giving it a second thought about how, you know,
Yeah,
creative it actually went.
yeah,
Um, I mean, 75% for both these movies is a good rating,
yeah,
but I'm just saying that both being 75% is
yeah. They don't feel
very,
equivalent when you watch them. That's for sure.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, 100%.
so
Anything else?
oh
Do you have
yeah.
some, should we talk
Well,
about move it to spoilers? Like,
yeah,
do you
we
have
can
some
get
end
into
of the,
spoilers. The only things I want to talk about is just like some weird things that they did in this movie, real quick. I guess this will just
yeah,
build into the spoilers, which is like the whole opening, the whole
let's
concept of
stop for a second. So
yeah,
spoilers right now, right? Okay. So if
yeah,
you
that's
haven't seen
fine.
the
That's
movie, you don't want things spoiled, click away. But from now on, we're going to talk about very specific plot points and be prepared. Go for it.
all right. So I'm gonna run through a couple things. They all kind of build towards the big spoiler towards the end, but like I thought it was just a. I don't really know what I'm guessing the idea behind it was like, how do we make this like like I think they wanted to spend a lot of time in water in this movie. like maybe because all the other ones are on land and they're like, we can't just like keep smashing buildings. And so like a large portion of this movie takes place in the ocean. And so like Kong is being held in like some VR simulation on like a
Oh,
boat.
we didn't even talk about that.
I mean, that's how the movie starts. Is he's in a VR, like a weird
Oh
or
yeah, yeah.
augmented reality,
No, that's not
whatever.
on a
But
boat.
that's not
It
on a
looked
boat.
on. No,
I
it
thought it
looked very
was.
much on land. It was like in the middle of this huge factory area.
Oh, okay. It was
Yeah,
just in a storm.
yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
I
it was very
thought it was in a
rainy when they
boat for
zoomed
some
out.
reason because of the
Mhm.
rain. Okay, that makes more sense then, because I was kind of confused on like
I
it's
like
just
how that
so
makes more sense then.
yeah. Because
It does.
in my head I
They
was like,
Truman showed
I
Kong
that's kind of what I was
for
imagining.
most of his life.
They really did. It's such a it's just a strange thing to do. I
I
don't know.
feel
I
like it'd
guess
be
it's
cheaper to just like make a island for him to go like
right.
hang out on with a bunch of bushes and
Or
stuff.
just leave him there on Skull Island. Like,
Yeah,
why
they
did
didn't
they?
really.
I don't really know why they brought him out of there, but whatever. So
Yep.
the plot kind of breaks down. Is like, so they, for some reason, he's there, and they need
Mhm.
him because they need to get to the Hollow Earth because they want to lure. Oh, because Godzilla's attacking everywhere around the world constantly, and they can't get him to stop. So they want him to go to the Hollow Earth and lure Godzilla there. Right. That's kind of the plot of the movie, or that's what they want to do. Right. Because their theory is that there's like a source
Yes.
to their
Yes.
powers, and yeah, so
Yeah.
he'll go there.
Godzilla wants Kong. Yeah.
Um, so they finally get there, and Kong like finds his axe and stuff. In order to like retrieve the axe, he has to like he does something that like activates the power, right? And it starts flowing throughout everything, and it
Yep.
powers the axe, and he picks up the axe, and then that's when Godzilla like
Shoots through the whole Earth.
yeah. So starting there,
Hmm.
that scene I thought was actually really cool because of the weird physics that they had built in the Hollow Earth. Like Godzilla shot down and it shot a hole through the floor of like
Hmm.
Hollow Earth. That whole
Yeah.
scene right there, that confrontation between the two of them, I thought was really cool.
Hmm.
And
And the visuals of them getting to Hollow Earth and just like the effect it has to everyone in the plane, like
yeah,
it was cool. It made no sense, but it was a great idea,
yeah.
and yeah, it looked cool.
And that scene kind of jump started the like the stuff I really really liked in the movie that I think worked so well was the cheesy villain like evil corporation that was secretly building Mecha Godzilla.
Hmm.
And when they like yeah, the girl the CEO's like daughter goes with them to Hollow Earth, and she's able to like get a sample of the stuff, send it to him. It immediately activates Mecha. Like from that point on, I really liked that whole last third of the movie. Just like
Okay.
that okay, well, besides the Millie Bobby Brown stuff, which still didn't I yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. But so that whole like I love that whole sequence of events because it was pretty much like a half-hour long action scene too. So you get that weird like Hollow Earth stuff, and you get like Kong picks up the axe and like jumps down the tube and comes launching out in the city. I was like, that is so
Hmm.
fucking cool. That looks awesome. And that whole
Hmm.
fight was just well done. Um,
That whole fight was very well done, especially
yeah.
between just the two of them.
And I want to say
Um,
that was at night, and then
mhm.
Godzilla kind of wins their confrontation. Kong gets knocked out and is like dying, and it kind of takes place over like as like the morning rises, and then Mecha Godzilla comes out. The evil man activates
Were you
Mecha
on board
Godzilla.
with Mecha Godzilla?
Yeah, I was so on
Okay.
board. Like it was so cheesy, but like it worked
You
for
know, what was
me.
like
I
the
don't know.
most over the top decision was putting the like the guy who was blending with Mecha Godzilla in a giant skull in some weird neon room.
Yeah, he was. Oh yeah, so that was so
That set design was insanity.
he was in the head of the main bad monster that Godzilla beats in King of Monsters.
Hmm.
So he's supposed to be like it was like the monster that like is like the apex monster. He's supposed to be in control of everything. So he was in one of their heads. Is what that set was, I guess. But I didn't
Hmm.
fully understand why.
it was just the most bonkers decision for a set
yeah,
design.
yeah,
Well, they're just like, well, at that point, they're just like, why not?
yeah. And but yeah, all that worked for me except for, of course, the culmination of Millie Bobby Brown's storyline, which was she spilt like coffee or something on a thing that disconnected the satellite from Mechagodzilla, which means they can beat him now.
It
I don't
meant
understand
they
it.
had like an extra 2 seconds of like free space to like punch him another time
Where he
to
like
like because he was
reconnected
like
or
about
something.
to like land his like final blow and they like spilt some liquid on the computer system at the right moment, um and that like broke him free so then they could keep beating him down. But it didn't seem like it disabled him by any means because
No,
while
because
they
he
were kind
kept
of doing their
going.
final beatdown, he kind of defended himself pretty strongly for a bit.
Right.
But like that was the culmination of like 40 minutes of
Of
like them
storytelling.
bubbling through the whole storyline with spilling that
Jeez.
water on the computer.
No meaningful anything for those characters. Like they're just complete idiots and have
Yeah.
no impact on the rest of the story. Wow.
Um and yeah, and throughout even like the ending or the climax, the our main characters are such bystanders,
Hmm.
even though we like see them reacting to so many things.
Yeah.
Like they're not important, and I don't even want to like. I don't even want like I'm cool with them being bystanders because I don't want them part of the movie. But like
Right.
we're still like so much like reaction shots and like plane swerving and um yeah, it's like uh and Alexander Skarsgård. He also does so little
Yeah.
for the entire, like you said, 30-minute climax,
Yeah.
maybe more. Besides just following Kong around.
Right.
Um, it's pretty rough from a
Yeah.
writer's perspective.
It's kind of weird because like I actually think that um Godzilla King of Monsters actually had a lot of the characters aren't like really fleshed out. It's not like not everything works really well, but the characters are actually pushing the story along and it leads to these really cool action scenes. And because we still know there's more part of their story that's important to the story, like it adds like a weight to each action scene because you're hoping they get out fine. In this, it's like I don't know what they're doing or why they're doing. Like I don't. If they die here, like it doesn't affect the story at all.
Yeah.
Like they're still just gonna keep going. It's like they're just, yeah, like you said, they're kind of just like these like they're not like neither of them are like driving the boat or running the military that's delivering Kong to this place. Like if either of them died, like it wouldn't change anything. They'd still just keep going, right?
I think the last
And
decision they make is telling the girl to tell Kong to go down the hole.
right, yeah,
And I don't think they do anything after that. In either the whole Hollow Earth, back in Hong Kong, I don't think anything else applies to them,
yeah,
even though they're there the whole time, which is like 50 minutes of the film.
yeah. It's
Um,
just weird writing. I don't know why they did it the
yeah.
way they did. But
Anything else outside of, I feel like I've repeated a little bit too much about that point. I mean, do you have anything else you want to mention that you liked or about the ending or spoilers?
um, yeah, I just thought the Mecha God like including him in this movie was a cool like thing. I don't think anyone saw it coming. It was kind of a big surprise at the end. That was that just kind of made the ending. I think that really brought the movie way up for me because it was just such a fun. It went out on a fun note,
Hmm.
and I really enjoyed
Um,
that last.
yeah, the idea of Godzilla and Kong. I mean, I guess it is cliche to have, not cliche, but it's common to have your versus movies end up having to team up for a greater good by the end.
Yeah.
Batman versus Superman did that very recently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that isn't too unique, but when I was watching it, it felt different. I was like, oh, okay. So now like they're no longer, they have to like save each other here.
Yeah.
Like the way it developed wordless, because obviously there's monsters, worked. And especially at the very end when they part ways for the final time with a mutual understanding, I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was like a really clever choice, to have it end that way.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything else besides the two monsters just kind of looking at each other and letting their anger go for each
Right.
other. Like you can both exist on this world.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say they did I think they did those two like justice. Like I understood what was going on between them, and I think they showed like the mythology through like action in a cool way that like made sense to me, and
Mhm.
like that part all felt like it was the way it should have been. Like it just worked and made sense. So I guess there's that. You know, that's kind of a hard thing to do with these non-speaking characters, but that worked really well for me.
Yep.
But other than that,
So,
go ahead. Go ahead.
so what would you rate this movie?
I think I'm giving it like a 3. Yeah, 3. I mean, maybe on rewatch, if that ending is as good as I remember it being, I might give it like a 3.5. But it
Yeah,
also,
between 3 and 3.5 for you.
yeah, but it also kind of kills it, like by going back to like Millie Bobby Brown and like oh, Kyle
Hmm.
Chandler. Like, there's like they have nothing. He was in the movie for 5 minutes, but they bring him back as like an emotional thing for some reason.
I gotta be. I'm between a 2 and a 2.5, but mostly maybe just a 2.
Yeah,
That's where I'm landing with this. If it wasn't for the crazy good special effects,
yeah.
but um, all right, that's all I got.
All right. Yep.
Pleasure doing this review with you. Should we up next?
Yeah.
We're the rest of the month. We're going to be probably maybe reviewing Barb and Star. Go to Vista Del Mar. Sean might spearhead that one. Bad Trip, which is possibly Derek, might spearhead that one. And the infamous new horror film Saint Mond, which Nick is really excited to do. Granted, these are always open to fluctuate depending on the week, but that's looking to be our schedule coming up. So stay tuned and see you all next time. Thanks, Derek.
Bye. You're
Later.
welcome.